Welcome back to another edition of The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're looking at a topic that honestly touches pretty much everyone in the workforce at some point. We're talking about compensation structures. But more specifically, we are going to look at what happens when a company gets it completely disastrously wrong. Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine this scenario for a second. You come into work, you sit at your desk, and you do your job brilliantly. You're just crushing it. But then you accidentally find out that the person sitting literally right next to you, doing the exact same work with the exact same qualifications, is taking home a significantly larger paycheck. I mean, how would you feel? You'd probably feel the immediate sting of that glaring pay disparity. It's a total gut punch, right? Well, that feeling, that exact sense of betrayal, is the emotional stake at the heart of today's case study. So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The compensation crisis. 2. Loss of workplace equity. 3. The motivation nosedive. 4. Destroying the team spirit. 5. The talent exodus. And finally, 6. Fixing the pay gap. Basically, we're going to track the chronological domino effect of a flawed compensation system, from that initial suspicion all the way to a full-on collapse. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the compensation crisis, a ticking time bomb. To really understand this ticking time bomb, we need to introduce the patient in our, let's call it, organizational medical diagnosis today. Meet Samudra Jaya. They're a sales and marketing company specializing in consumer electronics over in Malaysia. Now, let's point out the specific symptoms of their crisis that are popping up in our source materials here. Employees started raising some seriously red flags because sales executives were receiving totally different base salaries. And remember, these are people with identical qualifications and experience. But it didn't stop at base pay. Oh no. Incentive payouts were completely unclear. Top performers were complaining that the commission calculations were basically hidden. Zero transparency. And to make matters even worse, some employees were getting comprehensive benefits like full medical coverage and travel allowances, while others in the exact same roles were left with the bare minimum. I mean, it is a literal textbook recipe for disaster. Moving right along to Section 2, loss of workplace equity, when trust breaks down. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how inconsistent pay directly violates a core business concept, and that is internal equity. Internal equity is simply defined as the perception of fairness inside the company. It's that underlying belief among employees that the way things are run and the way people are compensated is fundamentally fair and just. And as you can probably guess, Samudra Jaya completely shattered this perception. Let's break down exactly how this loss of equity actually plays out in the real world. First off, it completely breaks workplace trust. When sales execs discover they're being paid differently despite having the exact same qualifications, the trust between the team and management just evaporates overnight. Second, it compromises that internal fairness we just talked about. And third, and honestly, this might be the most dangerous part, it signals perceived favoritism. Think about it. When employees see these huge disparities, they don't sit back and think, oh, well, there must be a perfectly logical administrative reason for this. No way. They assume the organization is rewarding personal favorites rather than actual hard work and merit. And that builds a deep, toxic resentment right there in the ranks. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the motivation nosedive, a drop in hard work and drive. This brings us to our second falling domino, which brilliantly illustrates the core conflict for the staff at Samudra Jaya. On one side, you have the absolute fundamental expectation of any sales professional. There should be a direct, clear link between the effort they put in and the pay they get out. They rely on those performance-driven incentives. But look at the reality at Samudra Jaya. Hidden, confusing commission calculations. Because these formulas are basically obscured in a black box, employees literally cannot see the link between busting their chops and getting an accurate paycheck. And here is the inevitable result of all that confusion. Top performers simply stop putting in the extra effort. When the very people driving your sales realize that working harder doesn't explicitly guarantee a larger predictable paycheck, they just lose the drive to excel. I mean, why hustle for an extra sale if you have absolutely no idea how it's going to impact your bonus? The confusing nature of the reward completely destroys the motivation to actually achieve it. Let's head into Section 4, destroying the team spirit, damaged morale. The roots of this low morale stem directly from how the company handles perks. Remember, key benefits, things like medical coverage and travel allowances, were being distributed unequally among people doing the exact same job. And this creates a highly divisive workforce structure. It It effectively splits employees into two artificial camps. You've got the favorites, and then you've got the outsiders. So instead of fostering collaboration among regional managers, marketing officers, and the sales execs, this unfair distribution just breeds intense interdepartmental resentment.
So the crucial point is this. Unfair distribution effectively destroys team spirit. You absolutely cannot foster teamwork, collaboration, or a positive company culture when half of your team feels like they're outsiders pressing their noses against the glass of some VIP club. It completely poisons the well of collaboration.
Which brings us to our fifth section, the talent exodus, top performers quitting. When trust, motivation, and teamwork are totally gone, the mass departure of top talent is pretty much imminent. High-performing sales and marketing professionals are keenly aware of their market value. They know what they're worth. So when they're confronted with confusing bonuses, unfair base pay, and inadequate benefits, they don't just sit there and take it. They're going to actively choose to leave the company. As we see in the source document, high employee turnover is the guaranteed outcome here.
Let's agitate this problem a bit and look at the true operational cost of all the secrecy. First, your top talent jumps ship to competitors. Competitors who are, quite frankly, smart enough to offer fair, transparent compensation packages. Consequently, the company loses its absolute most valuable staff. But the cane doesn't stop there. This creates a massive, massive drain on organizational resources. Samudera is now forced into this continuous, exhausting cycle of wasting substantial time and financial resources just trying to recruit and retrain new staff to replace the rock stars who already left.
All right, let's move to our final section, Section 6, Fixing the Pay Gap, the summary resolution. Let's move to and see how this builds into our actual solution. We've diagnosed the illness, right? Now we need to prescribe the cure. Here is the actionable 3-step playbook we pulled directly from the source material. Think of it as the fire extinguisher to the blaze we just analyzed. Step 1. The company must immediately establish fixed salary ranges for each job tier. No more random base pay for the exact same qualifications. Step 2. They have to streamline and open up the commission rules for transparent viewing. Everyone needs to know exactly how their hustle translates to their paycheck. And finally, Step 3. Ensure identical core benefits. Medical and travel allowances absolutely must be provisioned equally to everyone holding the exact same position. Fairness has to be visible, and it has to be systemic. That wraps up our analysis of the Samudera case. But before we go, I want to leave you with this question to really reflect on. How transparent is the compensation structure at your own workplace? Does it actually foster internal equity, or is it a ticking time bomb of secrecy just waiting to go off? Understanding these dynamics is absolutely crucial for any professional out there. So keep learning, keep questioning, and I look forward to walking you through our next explainer.